And welcome on in, guys. Tobin here with you. Miami Dolphins get themselves a 34-19 victory over the Las Vegas Raiders. An old classic I like to call TCB. Miami Dolphins take care of business against the Raiders today, improve their record to 4-6, controlled, dictated the terms of this game from start to finish. They were methodical early on. They were methodical in the entire first half. They picked them apart. They used the clock wisely, plotting down the field. It was a new look Dolphins. The big play took a while for it to show up, but it eventually did. And Miami would stick the dagger in Las Vegas and get their record to 4-6 on the year. Tua Tagovailoa, I think we now know why Antonio Pierce was so concerned for his well-being and for his future, because I would want him to retire too if I saw what he did to my football team and my defense today. Tua absolutely carved up the Raiders like he was getting ready for some pre-Thanksgiving, dude. 28-36, 288 yards, and 3 touchdowns on the day. The offense finally has a day where they get loose. They did not punt once today, and really just had this game in the palm of their hand the entire time. Las Vegas, there were times where they were able to get it kind of close, but every time the Dolphins offense took the field, they would always have a response. They would always have a counterpunch. The game really only had one piece of adversity for the Dolphins, and that was early on. First drive of the game, the Miami Dolphins were moving down the field, and Tua gets sacked, lost the football, and thankfully Kendall Lamb recovered it. So after that, Miami was like, you're like, oh man, this is not great. So you had to deal with that. Then Tua was about to get into a bad spot. They had to go over to Mostert, and then there was a huge defensive holding call on the Raiders, and that was one of those where Jonnu Smith got yanked a little bit. Huge break for Miami. They moved them down into scoring territory, and it would just be a matter of time before Tua would find his first touchdown to Jonnu Smith. Beautiful play by the Miami Dolphins offense. This Jonnu Smith, he would be the theme of the day, as he would be your number one performer on offense for the Dolphins receiving corps today. But just a monster performance by him. Raiders would get the ball back, and the Dolphins defense, this was interesting because it was one of those things. The first drive of the game for the Dolphins was 8 minutes. So the Raiders get the football, and they are about to have a really, really quick drive, and Calais Campbell is in on the punt, the punt return team, because he's there. He's a giant. You're going to see if he could block the punt. And he has the punt. It just whiffs right through his hands. And the punter, he runs into the punter, but the punter essentially just kicks him upside the head because he's so damn tall. And the Raiders end up getting a first down, and they would plod down the field and plod down the field and plod down the field, basically take up the rest of the first quarter, and they would get in. They would get on the scoreboard with a field goal. So that was their response to it. Miami made their mistake, got a huge break, and they were able to get in the end zone. The Dolphins make their own mistake on defense, well, really special teams in this case, and it would result in 3. So the Dolphins have a 7-3 lead after 2 drives and a first quarter in the books. They get the ball back, and this was one of those where the Dolphins, the real highlight play of this, I mean, Tua had just a sick-ass play where he's just in motion, shakes loose, buys time, and finds Jalen Waddle for a huge first down to get the Miami Dolphins within striking distance in this one. The unfortunate thing was, though, as they're going and gunning for it in the end zone, Tua, he tried to get it to OBJ. There was a nice grab by OBJ on a 3rd down, a 3rd and 5, which would get Miami real close. It would get him into first and goal situation. But then he got a little too much pepper on a throw to OBJ, and then he got sacked. Really was Max Crosby causing havoc Although he did not have like this monstrous day against Miami by any means. That was probably his best day. It set up his teammate for a sack. Dolphins would have to settle for 3. But again, another long drive. Like the half is going by. Like there's been 3 drives at this point, and there's essentially like 6 minutes of football left in the first half. The Dolphins are up 10-3. So it was wild. And then on the other side of it, the Miami Dolphins would, be letting the Raiders just kind of, go down the side, go down the field methodically, slowly, the slow burn. They would end up getting another field goal. About 45 seconds left. Now, the thing for the Raiders were going to get the football back. Dolphins, they really go nowhere. They have a wet fart of a 45-second drive. That was the only drive that the Dolphins couldn't sustain all day. And, so you go into halftime. Tyreek was limping a little bit. That was a bit concerning. But he was in some big plays today, man. Like, he was just finding the scenes. We still did not get, like, the Tyreek Hill bust out and willy-nilly down the field. But he had some. Like, the Dolphins are essentially going to Tyreek Hill on third down. Every single time it's either him or Jonnu Smith. He's finding those openings and finding those big plays for this Miami Dolphins offense. And that was huge. That was important. Like, Tua has to have that relief valve of who to go to, and it was Tyreek Hill today. So the Dolphins come out of the gate. They're like, all right, like, go get the football back because you've been letting the Raiders also stick around with these long drives. They would do that. Huge play. No surprise. Who gets the sack? You guessed it. It was Calais Campbell. Big-time sack by him. Next play, Minshew should have had an interception. I think it was Jordan Brooks, who just couldn't come up with it. But it should have been an INT for the Dolphins. And the Dolphins would get the ball back. Quentin Bell would have a penalty on the punt. They'd start on their own 3-yard line. So the Dolphins are going to have to go 97 yards in this play. And they would. They just weren't rushing anything. Like Tua and Mike McDaniel, credit to them. They would start off basically every drive. They were giving it to Devon Achane, and they were letting him set the tone for things, give him a couple runs, getting a little bit physical. Then they would find Tyreek Hill for a third down, and then it would be, Malik Washington got into the mix. They would find Jonnu for first downs. Tua would go to Jalen Waddle for a big chunk play. And then there was one where he tried to throw up a crazy one to Julian Hill. That didn't go, but then the next one did go to Julian Hill, and that was pretty exciting. I was like, oh man, look at him go. Then the huge play of this drive that swung things. Devon Achane would run for 30 yards. He makes a man miss and gets the Dolphins within the 5-yard line. And Miami was right back within a chance to get back into the end zone and really put a control on this game. This was going to be a huge drive. Aaron Brewer would get a holding. It was going to be one of these things. This was actually kind of a weird play because Miami thought they were going to go back 10 yards, and then like they're just kind of sitting there, and then out of nowhere they're just like, another flag on the play, face mask. And so they offset. It was like, oh. So instead of the Dolphins having to go back, it offset, redo the play. It would still get down to third down. And this was a sick ass play by Tua because he's just scrambling. He's rolling to the outside, and Cheetah is running with him right in the end zone, finds his way open, and Uno finds Cheetah for the touchdown. And it was great to see 2 weeks in a row. We've not gotten the great Bombski, but we have seen Tua to Tyreek Hill work well in the red zone. It has become a reliable safety valve for Tua. 97 yards, 14 plays, just under 8 minutes would become the theme for Miami. Like, they just continued to put a stranglehold on this thing. Now, the next drive, they would get a response by the Las Vegas Raiders. They would not go away. They would not go quietly into the night. And it was really the Brock Bowers show. That guy's good. I don't know what to tell you other than that he's a freaking menace. And it basically was one of these things. They had 2 huge plays. One of them was to his running back Madison. He got a big block, basically got down inside the Miami 25, and then Minshew would find Bowers for a 23-yard touchdown pass. Jordan Poyer was like nowhere to be found. touchdown for the Raiders. So they're back to within 5. They tried to go for the 2-point conversion, but Zach Sealer it on up. He would blow that puppy up. So they were within 5. There was a nice response for them, but you knew with Miami getting the football back, like this could be the time where, all right, you only get 6 there. Go get yourself another touchdown and really put a little bit more distance between you. Tua would find a beautiful pass to Tyreek Hill over the middle between 3 defenders, 18 yards, big chunk play. That would end the fourth quarter, and it was then that Tua would it was really, I mean, he just had such a connection and has had such a connection with Jonnu Smith. So that was impressive. But this is we talk all year. We're like, all right, we've talked now for a couple of years in the Mike McDaniel offense. When is the tight end going to become a thing for them? It's officially a thing. Like it is. It has become a thing. While it's not maybe as thrilling as the Cheetah and Waddle getting loose, this was a drive that you had a huge, you had a big time play to Jonnu Smith. Gets you a first down, and then Tua finds Julian Hill, of all people. He gets all the way down inside the 5-yard line. I did not have any illusions that this was going to get into the end zone. This was not like the shovel pass that was going to get fumbled. And I had no thoughts that after you got a couple of positive Julian Hill plays, couldn't imagine that Mike McDaniel was going to go to that well too much more. But alas, the Dolphins would go up. They would give a handoff to Devon Achane. He would get in the end zone. Dolphins go up 24-12. And, yeah, man, this was one of those where, like, every time they touched the football, it felt like Miami was going to, find their way and get a big-time score. Now, that being said, the Raiders did not go away. Why did they not go away? Because they kept throwing to this moose, Brock Bowers, and nobody could cover him. Nobody. Every single time, like, you threw 2 guys at him, Poyer and Brooks, and he's getting the completion. You throw anywhere, this moose, this behemoth was just going out there, and he was just plotting his way, killing the Dolphins today. What did he finish with today? Bowers was insane. Yeah, 13 catches on 16 targets, 126 yards for the former Georgia Bulldog. He was a monster. This would be another response by the Raiders. Minshew would find Amir Abdullah for a touchdown. Kader Kohou completely whiffs on this tackle. And Las Vegas would be back to within 5, 24-19. So this was going to be a big one from the Dolphins. This next drive, you're like, all right, you get a field goal here. We're talking, just about 4 minutes left in this game. Another long drive beforehand by the Raiders. It was like 6 minutes. Hard to believe they could have a quick strike. So if you could just get yourself in a position, you would go up 8 at the very least. But the Miami Dolphins would not need. They would not just settle for a field goal in this one. After a couple of handoffs to Devon Achane, huge penalty by the Raiders. 3rd and 5. Jalen Waddle. He's making a move. Him and Tua look like they're not on the same page, but they throw the flag immediately. Blatant holding on the Raiders cornerback, and the Dolphins would get a fresh set of downs. And 2 plays later, Tua would find Jonnu Smith wide ass open. Whew. And number 9 would take off, booking it all the way down to the end zone. Does anybody say booking it anymore? I don't think they do. I'm old. 57 yards on the touchdown play for the Miami Dolphins. They go up 31-19. Essentially a dagger for this one. But Miami really just no need in this one to use the punter. He got a nice day to put his leg up and rest. The next drive, Gardner Minshew threw a completion to Jalen Ramsey. Some call that an interception, and the Dolphins would get the ball back with just over 3 minutes left. They were in field goal territory, so even though the drive went nowhere, it set up Jason Sanders for a 46-yarder, gives the Dolphins a chance to go up by even more, in that case, 34-19. That would be all she wrote. Your Miami Dolphins victorious over the Raiders. and would find themselves now at 4-6 on the season. Raiders dropped to 2-8. They're essentially out of it. Yeah, it was just one of these cases. It was a game where, very strange game. Like, it was one of these games where you would think that a game like this, you see the score, you're like, oh man, there must have been scored all over the place. But every one of these drives, it felt like death by 1,000 paper cuts. And you're just trying to watch your like, you can't really complain about the defense because they went out there and they only put up 19 points against the defense. But like, these drives were just elongated, and Alon just kept going and going and going. But it was enough, man. It was enough, and the Dolphins offense had a response every single time. And what a game by Uno. He was absolutely tremendous today, finishing with 288 yards, 3 touchdowns. Had a rating of 127.8 today. Beautifully done. Beautifully done in this one. Jonnu Smith finishes with 6 catches, 101 yards, 2 touchdowns for the FIU Panther. Tyreek Hill, 7 catches, 61 yards with a touchdown. So those guys were your big targets today for Tua. And in the scheme of this game, you had Calais Campbell with a sack, Zach Sealer it on up. He got a sack, and Emmanuel Ogbah also got to the QB. So they put 3 sacks on Gardner Minshew. And Miami now moves on to the New England Patriots. And right now, if we take a look at the playoff standings, there's a Broncos game that's going to be a big consequence as I record this right now. They're playing the Atlanta Falcons, and that one is very early on, but the Broncos do have the lead nearing the end of the first quarter there. The big one that everybody was watching today was Colts-Jets. And, dude, what are we going to do with these New York Jets, huh? These bums in their building, they give up 28 to the Indianapolis Colts. They lose 28-27 to drop to 3-8 on the season. So they are in dire need of where they're at right now. They fall behind even further in the standings. The one thing that I said, we talked about this at the pregame show today, I'll never root for the Jets. The one thing that's a little discouraging about this, out of all the teams that are above the Dolphins in this playoff chase, Indianapolis has the tiebreaker over Miami because they lost to this team. But they didn't lose to the team in their building. And they didn't lose to the team with their starting quarterback. Either way, both teams did lose to the Colts, so I guess you have that. But the Indianapolis Colts do have the tiebreaker over Miami, so the reason I was like, I guess you kind of got to root for the Jets. The Dolphins have 2 games against the Jets coming up, so they can take care of their own business and get their own tiebreaker back. Whereas the Colts, they can't really do that. And the Colts, dude, have I don't know what's going to happen next week. They got the Lions. They'll probably get shellacked. But then these are the remainder of their last 5 games after that. All right? Peep this. Patriots on the road. Broncos, not easy, on the road. These are the last 3, though. Titans, Giants, Jaguars. I mean, that's a cakewalk. If they can go and get one game in the next 3, they're going to be sitting pretty. So the Dolphins really need they're going to need the Lions to beat them. They're going to need the Broncos to beat them, and they're going to need them to trip up at some point if the Dolphins can keep this up. As far as the Patriots are concerned, they lost today to the LA Rams, so the Dolphins will be taking on a Patriots team that's 3-8 coming into their building. Rams bounce back, obviously, from the loss to the Dolphins, and that's what the Dolphins got to do. They got to keep this up. They keep this up. I think the Dolphins can go get themselves another win over the Patriots. Certainly are better armed than they were when they got the win on the road, and that's right now. All you can say with this Dolphins performance is, probably the best offensive game of the year for Miami, best start-to-finish game of the year for Miami. I mean, there were some defensive lapses that leave a little bit to be desired, but the offense was so damn good. I think that's the encouraging thing, is there's been so many times where the defense has had to pick up the offense, and it just felt like anytime the defense had a mistake or just didn't have the stand, and they made their own stand, but the ones when they didn't, the offense always had a response. And some of it was by aid of the Raiders sucking. I'm not going to act like the Dolphins went out here and beat the 85 Bears or anything like that. But right now, it's all about just taking care of their business. They did that. Tua looked fantastic. He looks all the way back in rhythm. Jonnu Smith has been absolutely tremendous this year. Achane continues to be great. Tyreek Hill was super important today. Not a huge Waddle game, like pretty pedestrian. We talked about the one play that was key with him and Tua. Julian Hill had some positive stuff today. So, everybody else kind of contributed, but your main horses were Jonnu, were Tyreek, and were Devon Achane, and that's kind of how it's been. That's really been the identity of this team. Those have been the three go-to guys this entire season on offense. So, nice win for the Miami Dolphins, and they got to turn the page right away and get ready for a divisional game right back at home against a team that they got to beat in the New England Patriots. Get themselves, they win that one, 5-6 with a chance to go on the road on Thanksgiving in, essentially what could be a season make or breaker. Like, the Dolphins are at very, very little margin for error. They have to get themselves back to water level. They have to. But this was obviously a must-have. I think it was my guy MFer24 on Twitter who said it best, where he said, Tua should call for Antonio Pierce's retirement. That's good. Hey, that's a point right there, MFer24. He's right. Because really, what is more concerning for your health? Concussions or coaching the Raiders? You be the judge. I mean, yes, head health is very scary, but so is coaching the Raiders. I don't know if Antonio Pierce should be doing that just for his health, just for his overall health. It can't be good. It can't be good. What was good today was Tua and the Dolphins offense. Great win by them, and time to go rack up another one. Enjoy it for a day, and then get right back to work.